Good evening, everyone. I'm Knorr, and I am a werewolf novice. That's why Outstar put me here. I'm going to talk to Arthur from Different Tales, and we're going to talk about Heart of the Forest. I have Arthur over here. I have Twitch chat over here. Well, not right now, because it's a picture of something else. But that's what we're doing today. How are you feeling, Arthur?
Oh, excited
Because
and a bit nervous,
a bit. I
I
can
must
see
say.
that we're a few minutes late. We hope to start exactly at 6 because if I understand correctly, that's when the game launched, right?
Yes, yes.
So it's
So,
now. You don't have to wait any longer. If you've already whitelisted it, you can go onto Steam. You can purchase it right now. But if you're curious to hear a bit more about the creation of Heart of the Forest, we've got Arthur with us. You told me that you're essentially. I asked you, okay, so how would you introduce yourself? And you said designer and writer, right?
yes, one of the writers. Like most of the team is the writing team is three people, and uh, two of them are women, and I'm the one that's not. So it's and I'm also a designer for the
Yeah.
game. So.
So we're getting a lot of howls I see in Twitch chat here in as greetings. I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of people that really want to get more of the werewolf experience. How do you feel like as a werewolf the apocalypse fan? What can you expect out of Heart of the Forest? Like, what were you trying to achieve with the story on a general perspective?
Uh, I think there are three main things that were in our minds when we worked on it, and the first one was to bring new people to Werewolf. So that's not technically for Werewolf fans, but
No,
still,
that's for me.
uh, yeah, that's for you. And I'm a sucker for origin stories, so it was a pleasure to working on this one. But two other important things were uh, first. We wanted to bring werewolf closer to our times and like show some things that are happening like right now or almost right now,
Mm-hmm.
so more in the like fifth edition
Yeah.
feeling. And also we wanted to bring world to the world of darkness, so the game is not set in Amazonia or in United States, but on the Polish Belarusian border, where there's one of the last primordial forests of Europe, and that's a perfect setting for werewolves fighting against
Mm-hmm.
greed and technology.
Yeah, no, because it's interesting that you say that to me because, like I said, I've played a lot of Vampire the Masquerade. That's kind of what I got into, and like when I got into World of Darkness like 15 years ago, there was this idea of like werewolf because these were like the vampire fans, like, and they were like, oh, werewolf, that's just Under Siege with Steven Seagal, and I'm like, it's a deep cut for a movie, first of all. And secondly, this seems like it's not that, so I'm super happy about that. Like I said, the plan for tonight is that I'm gonna go over here. We have the game up and running, but we're on our fancy standby screen. I'm gonna press new game, and we're gonna go through some of the tutorial. Arthur, I'm hoping that you're gonna explain most of the mechanics for me because as a day sleeper, night walker, I don't know how this fury thing works. I'm like rage. That's not my blood
Okay.
pool. That's not the thirst. What's going on here?
Okay, we'll go through this. So yes.
So and I can see that we are now in game. The reason there's a continue button here is because, of course, I played a bit of the tutorial, but not too much because I wanted to be slightly confused and have like the proper guided tour here.
Okay, so let's do this.
Helton wants to know if we already awooed or if they're late, and they're slightly late. But feel free to awoo whenever you want. Like for this 1 hour stream only, free reign. This is also because I am not moderating Twitch chat or Steam chat today since I'm in here. So I'm like, anyone, go wild, shout at the moon, Smash, smash new game. Yes, I am sure I will remove my progress because there's literally no progress here. Prologue, premonition. Let's go. Tutorial. I'm gonna read a bit if that's okay.
Yes, yes, of course.
This game is about rage and how it helps us do things that need to be done, as well as things that we later regret. Sometimes both. How do you feel about that? So we can either feel great about it, we can be okay, and we can be more, I prefer to think before I act. And
okay, so here, because Werewolf is a game about rage. That's that's the gist of it. So we decided not to like beat around the bush and just start with what's most important, what's core to the game. Also, as you can see, the game itself, like Heart of the Forest, uses this personal approach. We are often asking you how we feel about things,
yeah,
not what you think should happen.
yeah.
So it's like very first person perspective text game. So
And that's I realized that when I was going through some of these early on, and I felt like, oh wait, I have to shift thinking in my head here. I'm not playing towards the outcome. I'm playing towards, okay, so what am I feeling as the character right now? Which was kind of neat.
Are trying, to do this thing that you are reading the game, but the game sort of is reading you at the same time, and like preparing the story so it suited your choices. But we'll see. We'll see.
I'm gonna go, like, normally I'd be like, I'm okay with anger when it's useful, but I feel like tonight I'm real ragey. I'm gonna go with the top one. My rage is high. So, you're the inspired warrior type. That's okay. There's no right path here. It's just your decisions and their consequences. Yeah, fuck consequences. Am I impatient or am I more of a... Yeah. I'm gonna... We all know what I picked.
I think you picked fuck consequences.
I did.
That's what I think happened.
I did. I very much did. The forest. The woods are full of stars. They flicker, come closer, run away. They want me to chase them, to play hide and seek. I hunt. They dance around the tree trunks, float up on the gusts of wind that shiver through the branches, disappear among the leaves. I let out a howl, eager to run with them. I want everyone to know I'm there. Then they bunch up and fly towards me like an arrow, rushing down. They're soon upon me, but just before the spear of light pierces my breast, they disappear and the dark of the night returns. In the darkness, I feel the tangled roots of stories keeping the forest alive, and I finally catch the scent of the enemy. I jump forward. And then I wake up. Oh. Cold and alone. Confused, I open my eyes. The forest around me is thick, dark, and reeks of decay to such an extent that it's hard to breathe. The smell fascinates me. I recognize this forest. Why am I here? You know what? I feel like I should be angry, but also slightly confused. Why am I here? My head is spinning. Why am I here? There must be a reason. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly in dark-leaved ivy, are covered in ripples of lichen where the vines haven't taken hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at their base are overrun with nettles. The fungi radiates with a ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark, sponge-like mushrooms cling to the fallen trees.
And let me just interject here. What is special about the forest you are in, like in the real world, because it's based on a forest that actually exists. It's that the forest is wild. It's unkempt, so all the trees that fall down just stay there, and they give they are base for other life forms like to live on. So one of the biologists that wrote about the forest said that there are 20 times as more organisms and species living on a dead tree in that forest than on a live one. So this is a place where life and death are, well, are in this cycles.
Yeah, and I mean,
There, it's not like a commercial forest when the trees are towed away. They just stay there and form the forest. Like they're a very important part of the forest.
yeah, because that's one of the things I thought about when I was going through this previously. I was like, because I realized when I got to this point, I'm like, something is rotten. I'm like, but hang on, this is a really old forest, and while from my city slicker perspective, surely that's like you don't necessarily want things that are rotten, but in a like a primordial, really old forest, there's always some type of decay, which doesn't necessarily means that things are dying. It's just reusing the energy to grow something else or letting other
Yeah.
species feed on what's slowly degrading, if it's biomass or leaves or whatever it is, which I think is cool, but also I don't want to walk in it because, like I said, city slicker. I like asphalt. Speaking of that, so this forest where a large portion of this story revolves around, or at least takes place. How many times have you been?
Well, I personally wasn't there, but other members of our team were there. They went there. Jacek was who's the programmer and director for the game, and he travels a lot. So he went there with his camera to like
Yeah.
make on-site research. So we have like tons of pictures from every part of the town and the village and the forest. So we had like a common frame of reference, and then other members of our team were there. This year was a lockdown year, so I
Yeah, like
spent
I can.
most of it in my flat, so
Yeah, I
not
can imagine
traveling
it's
much.
hard to go outside to do proper research, but at the same time,
But
like if you're gonna go somewhere, maybe in the middle of a forest where no one else is, probably
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not it's not
that
the worst
was
place. I mentioning that I know that we your team sent us some pictures of some of the things you captured when you researched. And we have Alex in the control room. So if you ever want to bring any of those up, let us know, and
yeah.
Alex will put it on screen.
Let's
I don't think we
let's
have any of
play.
decaying trees, though.
No,
No.
no, no.
So unfortunately,
Okay.
or just really old trees. I'm like, it's like everything's decaying. It's the forest. It's horrible. No, I'm sorry. So let's see here. I guess we should pick an option here. So you know what? I'm gonna go with something is rotten. I can't shake the feeling that something died nearby. I look down and see my hands covered in a dark substance. I'm naked. A sticky, glistening film of liquid is clinging to my skin. I can feel it on my face and my hair. Blood. I shout at the forest. Ooh, I got... So, one of the things we haven't talked about, and I'm sure people watching, since I'm playing it this really slowly, have noticed this as well, but throughout this tutorial, the things we actually react to impact the... I'm guessing, would you consider it skills here? Because I saw my bravery just went up to 3 dots, or...
I'd say it's more at this point. It's more like a personality test.
Mm-hmm.
The game is noting what kind of a person your character is,
Mm-hmm.
and then the game creates, I would say, a profile
Yeah.
of your character, and it starts influencing the story more and more as the game progresses. So while you are playing, your choices are revealing what kind of a person your character is. So because probably your character would be someone quite different from my character.
Yeah.
So and that's also fun when replaying, because it influences a lot of things. So one time I can play as someone brave, and then as someone more cunning or spiritual. This personality traits are connected to the five auspices of the werewolf, because in the lore, werewolves are born about under a moon, like a full moon or new moon or a gibbous moon, and depending on that, they have their traditional role in the werewolf society. So the full moon werewolves are warriors, and the new moon werewolves are like tricksters and questioners. Half moon warriors are judges. So you are. So it's important not only from a personal perspective, but also it places your character
Mm-hmm.
in the wider context of the story and of the setting.
Cool. And it seems like some choices are hard to make, and they strain your willpower. Because we had a really horrible thing just happen to us, and there's a severed head right in front of me, and I'm like, am I the type of person that goes like, ooh, severed head? Or am I the type of person that's like, ooh, severed head? And I feel, since I'm confused and very into rage, I think I'm still the type of person that's like, I'm gonna touch it. Overcoming my disgust, I gently touch its wet hair and watch as the head topples over. The rage is contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open as though the head were still struggling for air. I pick it up without thinking, high on adrenaline, and then eyes open in the darkness. The enemy! I can see their silhouettes, shades of jet black against the darkness. They reek of metal and acid and oil and money. Massive creatures, some with mandibles, some with spidery legs. Their faceted eyes burn like small industrial furnaces. I look at them and something wakes inside my chest. We're all in agreement here that it's clearly rage, right?
Yeah.
It's rage. Yeah. I throw the head in the direction of the shining eyes and launch myself into the air. My whole body sings with a rush of adrenaline. I descend and sink my teeth into the neck of a monster that was stupid enough to stand in my way. For a moment of clarity, I understand what the forest wants from me. And then I wake up. It's quite a hefty dream there.
Yeah, Werewolf, apart from a game about huge monsters that are ripping heads off, it's also a game about the spiritual side of the
Yeah.
world, and about dreams and omens. That every idea has its counterpart in this shadow of the world, in this world of spirits, where objects and ideas are alive and can interact with the physical world. So I think it's quite werewolfish. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's...
start with a dream.
And that's one of the things that always kind of fascinated me looking at Werewolf from, like, the outside. The idea that, yeah, of course, like, just the common idea of, like, the first time... Like, now, I picked high rage because I feel like that's what you do when you play Werewolf. But at the same time, if you're just looking at it from, like, more the intellectual story side of things, if I were to play Werewolf playthrough all of Heart of the Forest, which might happen, I'd probably, for me personally, go for a low rage character, because it seems like there's more in the margins there. Because if I'm playing something with humped up on a lot of rage, I feel like my reaction is I want to play into that, so I'm gonna rage as much as possible. But if you're like not a very ragey person, then all of a sudden all of these other like options open up for you. Like,
well, the story or the feeling of the scenes are indeed different depending on the level of your rage. It's one of the main core mechanisms that we use, that we are tracking your rage, and almost every scene is written in probably 3 or more variants that change almost imperceptibly to reflect your rage. When you're raging, when you're angry, you see the world differently than when you're calm and more perceptive. But at the same time, some things are easier when you're angry, because that's how anger works.
Yeah.
So we change the context of your choices by tracking how angry your character is. And I think we'll see this in the scene right now.
Okay, in that case, let's get into chapter 1, Arrival. Dreams. Is Maya? Maya, wake up! I jerk upright, irritated. My neck was stiff, and the movement sent a sudden sharp wave of discomfort through my body. I wasn't in the forest anymore, I was in a bus. The sun streaming through the window was making it hard to see. The girl next to me was touching my shoulder, disturbed. I push her away.
And this choice and this description
Mm-hmm.
were as they were because of the level of your rage.
Yeah.
If you were calm, the description would be slightly different and the choices would be different. So this is how it works.
And I mean, we saw that, right? Because it indicated rage high next to the responses. And I'm assuming if I'd gone with, in some other cases, a character that has a different makeup than what we've had would have had, other choices that were more in line with their current mood and what they were doing. So we're just being real annoying. Without a second thought, I push her away, adrenaline surging through me. When your rage is high, you might say and do things that you later regret, which I really like because it's very annoying. I'm like, because for me, right, like I think that's part of the fascination with Werewolf as well. Like from the outside, is that I tend to play very like calm and calculated, but in Werewolf, you also tend to be put into roles where you, in some parts, are like quicker to connect to some of your primal being, right? You're like, there's something inside of you that wants to get out, but playing calm and collected, you're like, let's slow things down, let's think about things. So and especially when it's like a written story like this, of course, I can take however long I want deciding on if I'm gonna look outside or if I was glad I wasn't alone, right? I can be like, what's the best, what's the gamiest solution to this?
We tried to write it in such a way and design it is in such a way that every choice would lead to some interesting consequences.
Yeah.
So because we are also sometimes like power players, and we really tried not to make the choices obvious.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. So how was that in the development process, right? Because like it's a game, you're trying to tell a story, you know that it's going to have multiple options going forward, but like you said, you wanted every choice to be interesting or meaningful in some way. How do you make sure that you put when you're like, okay, we're going to have a choice here, both of these need to be fun and interesting because we want people to go through this several times and experience different ways of playing it. Like how do you plan for that?
Well, we plan for that, then we do it, then we play it. It sucks and we change it. That's how it happens usually. But quite early in the process with this, we realized that we have to. It's best to use and this person to use rage and this personality choices and build scenes around them. So when we have a scene and this scene like introduces your character and your friend, the girl sitting next to you, and the place you are going to, so we know that this scene is about it. Then we thought, what's at stake? At this point, probably it's the relationship with your friend, and maybe some additional info you can get about your character. And then we prepare choices for every type of personality and made some of them available when you are raging, because it's easier to be brave when you are angry, and it's easier to be cunning or spiritual when you are calm. And then we wrote it. We wrote some. Then we wrote different versions of the context, so of the part of the scenes that are not choices of the description, different descriptions for high rage, low rage, and then we played it and see how it felt. So that's a process, and we usually do it. It's not one person doing it. For example, Marta or Joanna is writing the text and adding some choices, and then I'm editing it and making the choices more more how I feel they should be,
Yeah. You're
or I'm the
tweaking
one
them.
writing
That's-
and someone else is editing and tweaking my text, and then we try to play it as the whole team and feedback it. So there's a lot of iterating when you're making a game.
Okay, let's jump through a bit of the story because I do want to get slightly further, just because I can. I have the opportunity, and it's rare that you get to sit around and play and be like, well, so what do you how did you mean this with the designer? Okay, so Maya's clearly annoyed at us because she is looking hurt and scared. It was a while before she said anything. You were singing, I guess, in your sleep? I blinked. The memory of the dream was still there, and the overwhelming smell of the old forest. I was glad I wasn't alone. Thank you for coming with me, I said. The girl next to me shrugged. Her name was Anya. Oh, right, she's Anya, we're Maya. Got that wrong. We met a couple of weeks earlier on an orientation day. She was from Norway, a tall, broad-shouldered, calm person who wore her long hair in braids. Somehow I managed to talk her into this crazy field trip across the land of my ancestors. We were there to study medicine, or because Anya got cautious with us earlier, we now have this option.
Yeah.
So
relations with other characters influence the story, and
so I feel like I want to play into that. So Anya was having second thoughts. Anya reached into her backpack and took out an apple. She turned away from me and bit into the fruit. I reached into my bag and fished out a bunch of kabanosy, dried meaty sausage that were so much better than the original Polish ones back in the US. Anya still looked like she regretted meeting me. People often did, actually. Girl, you're a lot to handle, she said after a lengthy silence. I'm not sure if I have the bandwidth for so much drama in my life. This trip was my idea. You know what, Maya? Okay. Our summer language course was starting in a few weeks, and I managed to talk Anya into skipping the tours of concentration camps and old churches and visit... Oh no.
Białowieża National Park.
This is why you have a native speaker with you. With me instead. Remind me, why are we here again? She asked with her arms crossed. Good question. Why were we there? There being...
If you hover
yes.
your mouse, there should be
some
hint about the pronunciation.
We
added this after beta tests when we saw.
Oh, this is so good.
Struggling.
Białowieża. I will not remember this, but it sounds very Polish. Can't confirm that. I've been to Poland a few times, and this sounds very Polish.
It means a white tower, but...
Okay, so there, a small village in the northeast Poland near the border with Belarus. It was famous for its national park, the very last European bison, and, according to a quick web search, occasional tension between far-right troublemakers and the local Belarusian community. The most honest answer would have been, because I've been dreaming about the forest in Białowieża since I can remember, but people didn't understand when I said things like that. I looked her in the eyes. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, this is one of those where it's like, ooh, I mean, no, I told her everything. Oh no, our willpower went down. Oh, right. We could hover and figure this out. It's bullet points you can spend to perform actions that are difficult for Maya. Particularly willpower, but can be used to prevent the effects of high rage. Well, we have high rage and no willpower. This is going to end well. You regain willpower when you pursue your goal. When your willpower goes down to 0, you're impaired and able to perform hard mental and social actions. Right. So, things might get ragey. I've always had these dreams where I'm in this forest and it speaks to me, I said hesitantly. I'm not sure why, but I feel like I'm supposed to be here. Only my grandfather understood the dreams. Respect the forest, he would say, and pay attention to your dreams. It was all I got from that part of the family before my mom took me, ran away, and cut all contacts with my dad. You know what? I do instantly regret saying anything. Anya took her time to answer, and with every passing second I felt more humiliated and angrier at myself. Wow, that's intense. She looked at me with what seemed like respect. I wouldn't dare to tell anyone a story like that. Anna is neutral. You know what? Let's see how it rolls, she said at last with a smile. If your drama becomes too much for me, I'll just split and go sightseeing by myself. So, that's where we stood, and that was precisely why I needed to do something, anything about my future, that damn forest, and my weird-ass family. I had a clear goal in mind. I wasn't there by mistake. I planned this trip for months with a clear goal in mind. I don't feel like I have to face the forest, because the forest doesn't seem that, like, bad. But I do want to learn the truth about my roots. And now we got a goal. It's great. It's always nice to have something to, you know, work towards. My grandfather's stories, the secrets, my mother running away. There was a mystery in my past. It was time I uncovered the truth about who I was. But now I wasn't so sure if it'd been a good idea. Ooh. Conditioning.
The story takes place in Białowieża. It's a small village, and apart from that the forest is a very interesting setting, we also thought that, you know, World of Darkness, it's a modern horror story. So I'm not saying it's a variation on Stephen King, but there is something about small villages that are very peaceful, and, you know, because Białowieża in the real world, it's a really nice place, very nice, touristic, cute even. You really should go and see the place if you have the occasion. But in the World of Darkness, it's a great setting for something, you know, mysterious and darkish.
I feel like
that's where we are.
I feel like that's usually the case, right? Where you're like, well, normally the small town I grew up in, that's just boring generally. But in World of Darkness, the same small town, well, there's a mystery as to why it's boring or why it's this quaint. There's something lurking in the shadows, because there's always something lurking in the shadows.
And the most fun is to take things that are really there, that are really like in the folklore or like our urban myths, or just history, like weird history details, and build something on it. Because when you use World of Darkness as the metaphor, as like this dark reflection of our world, you know, a good lie is based on a grain of truth. So if you take a real setting, I think the effects when you place a horror story in such a setting,
yeah, no, I can totally
always like more, you know, believable.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because like I feel that whenever you place your story, you know, you have to think about, okay, so where's the location, and having an actual place that has an actual backstory that you can kind of tie into, like, it kind of, you know, makes it slightly spookier or slightly scarier, in the sense that, you know, this is a real place. We all know that, you know, and tying things into I totally lost my train of thought, but it was generally a much yes, Archer, 100% agree. I was like,
okay, so let's move on.
Let's move on. I recognize that building. I think I've seen a picture of it. Białowieża looked like an oh, sorry. We should also mention this, that we did lose all of our willpower. So we are currently impaired, which means that physical tasks, but no problem because we have health. But mental tasks, might be an issue going forward. But then again, we sat on a bus, and if there's anything that saps your willpower, it's probably sitting on a bus for a really long time.
Oh yeah.
Milovic looked like an overexposed photo of a village with the contrast turned all the way up. The sun wasn't just shining, it was shouting at the earth, and everything, the trees, the grass, the wooden houses, the fences, seemed weathered. Everything except the shadows. They were sharp, as though they were freshly printed with the darkest of inks. And they moved. For a second I could have sworn they moved, but then I realized it was just a black cat walking down the sidewalk. When it saw me, it stopped in its track. I watched it with suspicion. Hey, do you think they're rabid cats? Because this one is acting weird. I mean, they're rabid squirrels. Why not cats? She shrugged, looking around. Didn't you say your friend would be waiting for us? But he wasn't there, and the cat was still staring at me. Let's go. Anya put on her backpack. I'm tired, and I really need to find a toilet. And since we have no willpower, I didn't know what to do, but I was too tired and distracted to think clearly. My friend was nowhere in sight. I have a mission now, so normally I'd be like, ooh, I'm gonna storm off, but I feel like I need to know. The meeting's too important. Let's just wait a little bit longer, I said. I don't have his number, and we really need to meet up with him. His name was Bartek. I met him online while researching Bielorussia. The man knew everything there was to know about local history. I asked him to check if anyone in town remembered my grandparents. I hope he found something. I really need to pee. Anya is my spirit animal. Anya said it like I was a 5-year-old and not a very bright one. Fine, let's go pee. Okay, let's go. I'm very easily. I don't have any willpower, so if someone's like, "Well, we should go," I'm like, "Fine." Okay, let's go. I grabbed my backpack and stormed off, angry at Bartek, Anya's tiny bladder, and the creepy cat. We should also mention, by the way, because of course we're blocking off a decent portion of the screen, but behind us, there are cool animations happening, which actually adds a lot. Generally, it's just that, you know, when you're playing for an audience, you tend to look at the audience and then you look at the text. But I really like the vibe of it so far, especially like, do you think we can talk a bit about like how did you decide like the look of the game right now? We started in the forest, that was pretty clear. We're seeing some extra other colors. Like, what's the thinking behind the look?
You know, we try to make it look different than your default visual novel.
Yeah.
So we went for something part graphic novel and part like illustration, book illustration. So the illustration are collages. They are many different pictures and photos combined and images combined. We tried rather to recreate the feeling of the scene than the literal illustrations. So just enough to make your imagination work. We added some animations and tried to make you feel that you are there, and not exactly show you exactly how it is. Just try to
kind of
convey the vibe.
People in, exactly. Get people in the vibe of the town.
And I think it looks really okay. We cooperated with I think 7 illustrators who are working on illustrating different scenes. So we have some idea for the scenes, then we're sending them the text, and they worked as if they were illustrating a book, and then we talked. We took the different layers of the picture and we turned them off and on and animated them depending on what happened in the story. So that's how the look was achieved.
We made it to the bed and breakfast. Bialowice had a few hotels and hostels, but the preferred form of accommodation was bed and breakfast. That's where we stayed. I found one that was nice, clean, and had good reviews. So, generally good idea. We had a room on the second floor with a huge window and a great view of the forest. We dropped off our stuff and freshened up a bit. Maybe we should have waited for your friend. You had to pee?
People are people.
Anya asked concerned. I shrugged. I'll find him sooner or later. Before you go, check your character sheet. Look for it in the upper right corner of the screen. You can find a load of useful info about Maya, her background, personality, goals, and so on there. You can also check who your friends and who your enemies are. Okay, so we are gonna go to the upper right corner and click this thing. So we are Maya, we're 24, we're a student, and we're an American. Our personality assessment is that we're really brave, you guys. Okay, we're a bit inspiring, and we're a tiny bit analytical. We're not spiritual or cunning at the moment, but, you know, maybe we'll grow into that. We're currently impaired on willpower, and we have a goal. And, of course, we do know Anya, which pops up if you hover over it, and we get some information telling us who she is. So that's nice. And we also have family, but, you know, it's complicated. I had other things in mind. What do you have in mind? Okay. Lay of the land. I had a clear goal in mind. My family was entangled with this town and the forest. I had to uncover my roots. Anya went with you. Okay. So I'm guessing we can either go to the forest or we can go to town.
Yeah.
I do have a goal in mind, and for that reason, I feel like I should go to town.
So let's do this.
Oh, it's serendipity. As we walked through town, Anya nudged me and pointed at a tall, broad-shouldered, freckled guy standing at the bus stop with a lost expression on his face. I remember his face from the pictures on social media. It was the friend who stood me up earlier. You know what? I'm still angry at him. Because Maya is not a person to make a good first impression, if she can help it.
No, she's not.
Every friend's like cautious.
At least not at the moment.
No, not at the moment. Like, she's the type of person that grows on you.
Yeah.
Like a fungus.
Grows.
Growls on you. Bartek! I snapped, irritated. You stood me up. Not cool. Maya, what are you doing here? He blurted with surprise when he saw me. I was sure you were coming on the later bus. We started walking and talking. His accent was broad and East European. You know what? It's a good excuse. It's a pretty good excuse. I flooded him with questions. Luckily, he loved talking about his home, so when I flooded him with questions, he kindly obliged. He talked about how the village had become a tourist destination, how the lodging business moved... logging business moved to a nearby town, how the trains had stopped coming, and the local station had been turned into a hotel for wealthy foreign hunters. The dozens and dozens of bison statues scattered around the village watched us indifferently. We walked along the only street in the village, nearing the center, if you could call it that. Every house had a garden, and the air was dense with the fragrance of flowers. I took a deep breath. I mean, I'll be honest, Arthur, sometimes I just like it when there isn't an option, and I can just have the story progress without being like, I'm gonna pick the wrong thing, and it's all gonna derail. And I'm like,
yes,
just one option. What's going on?
We spent quite a time to find like the right ratio of
Mm-hmm.
clicking to reading, because sometimes at least it works for me. Clicking on a button, it focuses my attention, so even if there's no choice,
Mm-hmm.
I realize that something happens, or I can focus on the text for a moment. So it's also like something that's needed in a game like this, I think.
Yeah, no, and that's actually kind of an interesting thing to talk about, right? Because an interactive novel or something like this is y- yes, we're reading and we're picking choices, but the idea that we're actually picking and being, relating our own experiences and what we want to achieve with every part of the story does make the experience very different from me sitting down and reading like the book Heart of the Forest, uh, because sometimes when you're reading and everything's going well, it's a super interesting story, and suddenly, whoops, you're 3 chapters deep into something, and you're like, what happened a chapter and a half ago? Like, I know I enjoyed it and it was a fun read, but you're not necessarily always present. But when you're presented with text in this way, and you're like, okay, but what's going to happen next? What do we want to do? All of a sudden, you kind of snap into like it's moment and then moment and then moment kind of thing,
Yeah.
which is a very very interesting experience if you're watching and haven't tried an interactive novel. Or this is my academia background, because we talked a lot about hypertext when I was studying
Okay.
at university, which is if
No,
you're
and there's
hella
also
cool.
this thing that, like in psychology, the choice fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
I- Every time I'm making a choice, it costs me some energy. So from time to time, I just need a button to click, like
Yeah.
just to is the tension down?
Yeah, no, it's so interesting to realize that yeah, there's actually not a conflict, but there's a design
Tension.
involved is
Yeah.
figuring out when we want to be like, okay, so we need to control the story versus we need to get more of the story to be come back and be able to
Mhm.
invest more in it. And I say that as someone playing Maya who currently has no willpower, and meaning
And
mental.
she's pretty angry at the moment
She's
when
pretty
you
angry
invaded
at the
the.
moment. This is true.
So
We have a gold family, so that's going to influence what we're asking here, I'm assuming. So, did you manage to trace the name I gave you? I asked. Bartek shook his head. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sorry. He was avoiding my eyes. A trickle of sweat ran down his temple. He was lying straight to my face. What the fuck, man? I threw my arms in the air. You wrote to me a few days ago that you had something. But he just clammed up. You know what? I think you should drop it. I stopped. I turned to Bartek, grabbed his shirt, and pushed him hard against the fence. I'd always been strong, and anger made me even stronger. His feet lost contact with the ground. I heard Anya gasp. So, now, normally, if we had some willpower, we could have come to our senses here.
yeah,
But
that's how it works.
that's not us. So, we're gonna scream in his face. I traveled 300 miles in a fucking bus without fucking AC, I shouted, a few flecks of spit hitting his chin. I did it because you said you'd found something. My arms got tired, and I dropped him. I politely asked again. Bartek is now unfriendly, but we're slightly braver. So, would you kindly tell me what you've found? Bartek scrambled to his feet, pale and terrified. The game tracks your decision on how Maya approaches problems. They will accumulate and gradually reveal what kind of person she is, deep in her heart. Oh, I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry. The story changes to reflect Maya's personality. What? Well, he brushed his forehead with the back of his hand. I did ask. I started with the old people here. I told them that my friend from the States was looking for her roots and wanted to know about the place her family came from. You know the drill. At first, people were very, receptive. I waited for the other shoe to drop. And then I mentioned your name. He shook his head. You know what? I'm okay we're needing a moment to calm down here.
Yeah, let's try this.
Because we walked in
You know,
silence.
we decided to show you sometimes whether a choice, how the choice
Yeah,
influences your rage, uh, because there's no optimal path. It's not like high rage is always good or
yeah,
high rage is always bad. So it's more like we are inviting you to co-author the story, co-direct the story. It's like in real life a bit. When I'm angry, sometimes I just want to calm down, and
yeah.
sometimes I just want to continue to be angry. So we like mm, show the choices to you, and it's your decision. And and the story unfolds in a different way depending on how you chose.
Uh, let's see. We walked in silence for a long time. Finally, I nodded, and he continued his story. One of the old men here told me to go to hell. The other spat on the ground, and his wife crossed herself. For a moment, he looked younger and smaller, and then my own grandmother told me to stop asking. She said something else as well, and I just realized what time it was. Uh, I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but I do know that we have some pictures that you guys sent over of
Uh, Yeah,
some of your
because
research things.
I thought that maybe when we okay, let's look at them because they are about of the places that you will see in the game.
Yeah,
Like if you continue to you'd stumble upon the places, so we just can
let's have a look
look
at
at them. They are not very like spectacular picture wise, but they are interesting
yeah
because they show how the place looks. In the real world. So
yeah, and if you play the game, you find some of the places that have been inspired by the pictures. You know, let us know on social, brag about it.
mhm.
So that we can be like, yes, very very good. So this I think is this the old train station? Alex is
Yes. This is and because there was this railway that was used to transport the wood, like to the factories, but to the wood mills, but it was closed, and now it's just solely for touristic purposes.
yeah and
There's a hotel there, and you can spend the night in a train that's turned to a hotel. It's a really interesting place.
yeah, and that's one of the things that Bartek talked about just previously, right? He
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
yeah, the logging industry moved. It's
yeah.
no train stop at the train station anymore.
Yeah, and
Which
the whole
is
line
and
is closed.
here we have some overgrown train tracks.
Yeah. So that's the train station is still used, but the tracks are just being reclaimed by nature,
Yeah.
and there's happens almost exactly at the same at this point. So yeah, we could.
So, oh, and here we just have a. The reason I'm explaining the pictures, by the way, is because Arthur,
Yeah, because I'm not
no,
seeing.
he can't see them. So
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what the pictures are, but I kind of
yeah.
have to be descriptive about it. So here we have an old white building on a street. So
Yeah. It's a local store, and we took this picture because this is a very characteristic building for Poland, especially for Eastern Poland, because when Poland was a communist
hmm
uh, state, there were like this very characteristic state-owned uh, stores that sold everything, and they were pretty ugly, as you can
yeah,
see, and they are like still lingering in the in the landscapes. So especially when you move out from big cities, so we decided to use it as a background for a scene in the game.
and here's an well, I don't want to say old, but we're looking at the cemetery.
Yeah, it's what's interesting, like from a Polish perspective, in Białowieża, in the area, is that Poland as a whole is mainly a Catholic country,
hmm
and uh, in Białowieża there are a strong Orthodox community. So what's interesting in Białowieża is that there's only one cemetery for and every denomination,
Oh, okay,
every
yeah.
faith are using it. So when they are looking at the crosses, you can see Catholic crosses and Orthodox crosses and some tombs, some are just without any cross. So it's for Poland, it's a very unusual
Yeah.
place. And, so probably when Maya is looking for her roots, she will
Mm.
visit this particular cemetery, and we also have an Orthodox church. That's because the the cemetery is near an Orthodox
Oh, and
church.
is this
So that's
is this the Orthodox Church? Yes, it is. I think, right.
yeah.
This is the brick
So
church.
the place is I think the church is from probably 19th century, but the town, the village itself it was founded in Middle Ages,
Hmm.
I suppose, because there was a king's hunting lodge in the area, and the first. Um, I would say forest industries because it was probably just cutting down
Yeah.
trees and making charcoal, but it was
I mean, they use
yeah
the forest as part of their
yeah
livelihood
yeah
and has
yeah.
for a long time.
So
So
yeah so
we're unfortunately almost running out of time. Well, we are running out of time. Arthur, thank you so much for taking part in talking to me. But before we go, of course, we do need to talk about all the important stuff. As in, the game is out now.
yeah.
You can get it on Steam, and you might even be watching this on Steam. In which case, thank you for watching it. The purchase link is down below. But there's also a demo, right?
Yeah, there's also a demo, or it
So
was. I'm not sure if it's
it,
online still.
if it there has been a demo, you might have missed it, but why would you need
But
it? You've
what
seen
there
all of this.
there is a discount for the release on Steam and on GOG. And if you have other World of Darkness games like Shadows of the New York or Cotters of New York, we have a nice bundle so you can complete your
Yeah,
collection
of course.
and get even more discounts. So
And I
buy
mean,
the game. Yeah,
but
that's the message.
but with that said, of course, since this is Werewolf, and I'm easily impressed. I've now been converted Werewolf. Clearly the coolest setting in World of Darkness. Would you agree? This is when we go,
Well,
yes, yes, of
yeah,
course.
that's one of the coolest
Oh,
settings.
that
Yeah,
very diplomatic, very nice, very nice.
yeah.
I'm,
But
I
this is a cool game. That's what I'm sure of. This
yeah,
is a
no,
very cool game.
I'm actually since I now have access to a copy, I'm gonna go home and play some more because I
Well,
do
take
legit
it,
want to
take it.
kind of know what's going on
You
with
know, there
my.
are stuff waiting for you.
Yeah,
Things
exactly.
will happen. Things will happen. Your Maya will be angry, or maybe not. Maybe you can change that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna be really calm and have all the willpower next time. No, I think I'm
It
gonna.
will be satisfying.
Yeah,
I can promise you that.
I think I'm gonna go home and try and have a more of a balanced build. But Arthur, thank you so much for taking
Thank
part.
you.
Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think of the game. It's really cool, and hopefully you guys think so too. Yes. Now go play. Thank you, and good
Thank
night.
you. Good night. Bye.